right, welcome to the Saturday Morning Nerd Show. I'm Marcus Blake, your host, and join with me, the Brewing Sailor, Mr. Brendan Smith.
Hello, everybody.
And from the Electric Jellyfish Podcast, Mr. Chad Womack.
Morning, folks.
And you were listening to the Star Wars hit song from 1999. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Well, anyway.
Hey, I love Weird Al.
I do too. And honestly, I think that song's better than the actual movie. But
that ain't saying much.
No. But we're going to get into talking about episode 1 and all the other movies a little bit later. We have a bunch of other things that we got to talk about because we've been off for a little while and there's a lot happening in the nerd universe. So we're going to start with before we do, just in case you didn't read the title, it is the 45 Days of Star Wars, which officially started on April 11th, this past Monday.
This is kind of the title right here.
Yeah. And it is the 45 days leading up to the 45th anniversary of when the original movie came out on May 25th, 1977. So in honor of that, we are basically doing the 45 Days of Star Wars, talking about little anecdotes, our favorite things. And since this is our...
and of course, as soon as we announced this, they shifted the premiere of Obi-Wan 2 days later.
Yeah, we're going to get into that, Disney.
Well, I know why they did that, but...
I know. But anyway, it doesn't make a difference because there's still plenty of things to talk about. And this is our first podcast within the 45 Days of Star Wars. So we thought it'd be kind of fun in the latter half of the show to talk about how do you properly watch the movies now? Because if you're a Star Wars fan, I'm pretty sure you're going to binge watch all the movies leading up to this great anniversary. So anyway, moving right along, we'll get to more of that later. But we got to talk about some movies that are in the theater, things that you should check out. This weekend is the Fantastic Beasts 3 movie, The Secrets of Dumbledore. And if you're a nerd, I'm sure you've already seen it. If you were lucky enough to do some of the earlier promo screenings a couple of weeks ago, that's awesome. So what can we say about this movie? Well, it was definitely better than the last one. But I don't know if that's really saying much.
Not exactly high praise.
No. I mean, and again, I'm not knocking the Fantastic Beasts movie. As far as prequels go and going back in that universe, I think they've done a fairly decent job, especially with casting. But this is like the one time that I have to say that Mads Mikkelsen is not the best choice for a role.
Really?
I feel like Johnny Depp is better suited for Grindelwald, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Grindelwald.
Thank you. I just didn't find, I mean, he was good in the movie, but I just don't think he's better than Johnny Depp.
Well, and it's, I mean, Depp already had let's be honest, Depp already had 2 films establishing that was his character. And,
right.
I mean, the reasons he lost the character are absurd. And, the studio's really getting a lot of egg on their face with how bad Amber Heard's been. And now she's losing roles. And, everybody jumped. I'm having a serious Bill Burr moment here because, everybody jumped to believe Amber Heard because believe women. Really? All of them? I'm just going to believe them all? How about we believe like 87% of them? Because 13% are crazy. And that's where Amber Heard falls into that Bill Burr 13%. So, I love Mads Mikkelsen as an actor. I just, I hate changing actors mid, trilogy or whatever, or recasting a role mid trilogy, especially if it's like, it's not something where, okay, the guy had a terminal illness and he was like, yeah, I fully bless you changing the character, kind of like what would happen with the original Dumbledore or with Spartacus. Those were 2, obviously people had terminal illnesses. Richard Harris was very old.
Right.
You know, so like I get that, but when it's for some arbitrary, you know, Hollywood
Cancel
bullshit,
culture.
yeah,
Buffoonery.
then I think Mads Mikkelsen was starting off behind the eight ball to begin with, and yeah, I agree with you. I think they should have stuck with Johnny Depp. It was his character.
Well, again, Mads Mikkelsen is great in anything, and I encourage people. He was awesome as Hannibal Lecter in the Hannibal series.
And I love that movie he did on Netflix, Polar.
Do what?
The Hitman movie he did on Netflix, Polar, I think as it was called.
Yes, another great one. Awesome in Rogue One. I think you can't. He's going to be a perfect villain in the next Indiana Jones movie, even if that's not going to be.
He does fit. Yeah, he does fit in Indiana Jones as a villain. I'll give you that.
But you know,
he was a phenomenal Bond villain in Casino Royale.
Yeah, probably with the exception of Javier Bardem, easily like those two were the best villains of the Craig era by far.
Yeah, and nothing against Christopher Waltz either. I mean, he played a pretty good Blofeld, but we've seen so many versions of Blofeld.
And the script for Spectre and the script for his movies weren't as good as the scripts for Skyfall and Casino Royale.
Right. I think anybody who knows Amber Heard and will say, if she as nice as she is or whatever, or if you're friends, she loves drama. I've heard more and more people talk about that, and I think this is just another example of loving drama. And you're going to get drama when you're married to Johnny Depp. And this whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I don't need to see this kind of divorce aired out about who said what. And it's like any divorce attorney, pretty much, 75% of what you guys are talking about is bullshit anyway. And to have them lose roles over it, I don't think it's going to stop people going to the movies and seeing these people. I've never heard anybody say, well, I just can't go see this movie because so-and-so is in it. Tom Cruise may be crazy as shit, but it doesn't stop people from going to see his movies.
Yeah, Maverick will be a heavy draw.
Exactly. And however many more installments of the Mission Impossible movies. Okay, whatever drama is going on in people's lives, when it comes to the cast of the Fast and the Furious movies, people still go see them.
So Amber Heard's presence as a person isn't going to keep me from seeing a movie she's in. It's just the fact that, I don't think that there's a single person on earth that couldn't hand her a paper bag and say, hey, bitch, act your way out of this. And she'd be able to pull it off because she can. She's a terrible actress.
Yeah, she comes.
That's enough to keep me away.
She comes from she's hot, so let's put her on screen school of acting.
Exactly. She's like.
And by the way, before you accuse us of being misogynistic and all that, there are guys that come from that school of acting too. For a long time, Channing Tatum was that. He's morphed himself out of that somehow, unbelievably, and good for him. But I always thought he came from that school of acting. I was going to say something else, and I totally lost my train of thought. So you guys go.
Well, no, I mean, I cannot believe that I have, praised Channing Tatum more than once here. Because when, 10 years ago, when we started that nerd show, all we did was just like rag on him. It was like, oh my God, enough is enough. I mean, I cheered when they finally killed him off in the G.I. Joe movie. And, but, to his credit, I think every actor kind of has to grow out of that a little bit. Brad Pitt did too. And Brad Pitt has chosen a lot of great roles. Honest to God, in the last 25 years, I cannot think of a movie that I thought he was horrible in.
I can tell you one role that Jennifer Aniston thought he chose was really bad. Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yeah, there's that.
But it is, but it is still kind of a fun movie. I mean,
just the fallout was shit,
Too soon, hey, too late.
Yeah, well, whatever. Anyway, The Secrets of Dumbledore. Go read Chloe James's review. She rated it a 7 out of 10. It's definitely worth seeing in the theater. everybody else is great in it. I mean, I honestly feel like you couldn't have found a better younger version of Dumbledore than Jude Law. I have really enjoyed him, you know, in this movie and the last one. Now I got to share this story real quick, and this one I've been waiting to share it live on a podcast. I almost messaged you, Brendan, or maybe I did. I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought, but we were sitting in the movie, and the guy that plays Albus, or not Albus, Dumbledore's brother that runs the bar, the inn.
Yeah, that's Albus.
I thought Albus was actual Dumbledore's first name.
Oh, you're right.
Starts with an A.
Hold on.
Yeah. Anyway, long story short, we're watching the movie, and I'm like, I know that actor. Where does
Aurelius.
Aurelius. I'm like, where is this actor from? I recognize that voice. It took me about half the movie to realize that it was Richard Coyle from Coupling. And I got excited, and I made a comment to Chloe, oh my God, it's Jeff from Coupling. Oh, and she goes to me, I figured that out in the first 10 minutes of this movie. It's like, on one hand,
Jeffrey.
I'm very glad you know that reference. And now I feel even worse that I didn't recognize it right off the bat. And now I want to go back and start coupling over.
Her breasts. I take it she had breasts, Jeffrey. I covered in them.
I only saw one leg. Which one? The left. Nice.
You've been had, mate. More than once.
You know, 20 years later, that show still holds up and still rings very true.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I encourage people, if you're a Harry Potter fan, you like the Fantastic Beasts movies, it's definitely worth going to see in the theaters. They did a great job. Ezra Miller was, you know, pretty good in this. And I don't know what
his career might be over.
I don't know what's going on with him.
Speaking of signs of the apocalypse, geez.
Yeah.
I'm hearing so much stuff. I'm like, I don't know which rumor or not, but I think he's at the point where he wish he in his personal life he could have a Flashpoint movie and go change time. Jesus.
Yeah, because who knows if we'll ever see one in DC.
God. Anyway, another movie.
DC's such a mess.
We finally get to talk about. We were under an embargo until last week, earlier this week. Father Stew with Mark Wahlberg, which you can go check out my interview with Mark Wahlberg, which is on our website and our YouTube channel. While we do not review religious movies, and I don't even really consider this a religious movie per se. I considered it more about faith and just kind of, you know, finding redemption more than anything else, with a very funny and humorous character. Father Stew, I was pleasantly surprised by how good it was. And Mark Wahlberg, I feel like, was kind of the perfect fit for this role. But I got to hand it to Mel Gibson playing his dad, Bill Log. Mel Gibson was great in it.
I mean, Mel Gibson's, don't get me wrong, he's batshit crazy, but he's also a very good actor and director.
Right. I mean, it doesn't matter, you know, what kind of straight to DVD movies he's doing or whatever. And he always turns out good roles. And some of these movies that he's done that are just off the wall, like Get the Gringo. I mean, so I do encourage people, if you're looking for that kind of heartwarming story about faith and everything, with a lot of you know, down to earth comedy that isn't being preachy, or not the kind of religious movie that you'd find on PureFlex, which has a very obvious message, then definitely go check out Father Stew. I think everybody can kind of relate to Stuart Long and his journey to, you know, become a priest, and very much, I think all the characters and very much remind me of the priest that, you know, Brendan and I have known and drank with in the pub. And, you know, I consider them kind of regular people, but men of faith, and, you know, not hypocrites, as we often see with televangelists and
Yeah. Like one of my favorite priests of all time is a Dominican named Father Paul Keller. The man speaks fluent French, Latin, and Italian. You know, he's a font of knowledge and a really cool guy. And I used to, when I lived up in Rhode Island, once a month, he and I would go to an Irish pub and just sit and talk and have a corned beef sandwich and drink a Guinness together.
Yeah. And, you know, one of our friends that I've not seen him, Father Bob, who, you know, loves to talk Star Wars, Star Trek, craft beer. Have you been to confession lately? You know, it's.
Didn't he just drop a message on your Facebook profile too, like one responding to one of your posts?
I think so, and I haven't responded back, but we got to give a shout out to Father Bob. It's just, I think there are very obvious movies that have their hidden agenda. You know exactly what they're doing, and that's what Pureflex is. It's every other movie like, if we only had Jesus, everything will be okay, and blah 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 blah. And I think the latest God Is Not Dead movie, you know, it's about the hard-fought journey to make sure that they're teaching creationism and respecting your faith in a biology course in public school, and how Christians are being discriminated against because they can't get those topics of, you know, conversation or education in a biology course. And
that's not education.
I know, and I saw the trailer like, you're not being discriminated against. The school's not telling you you can't be Christians. They're just separating science and faith.
Yeah.
Not, slow your roll, Kevin Sorbo.
Well, I mean, the creationism stuff is just weird too, because like I'm still very Catholic, but I don't understand the creationism stuff because it's like, you know, I still remember Robin Williams' bit about like, could the let there be light be a you know, be a way of saying the Big Bang? No, God just went thick.
It's like, hey, and if you want to watch, I encourage people. There's a great YouTube series called Mr. Deity. I don't think they still do it, but it's about God and all of his little assistants trying to figure out how to make the earth. But the best episode is when they're figuring out how light and how to start everything. God, who was watching infomercials late at night, discovers the clapper, and he's trying to tell his assistant, I discovered this great invention. This will be awesome for starting light and for Earth. And he's showing it, and then the assistant's like, but what about applause? Oh, yes. When people like clap and, you know, like they clap in your name, like, oh yeah, that would probably be problematic. So yes, all I'm saying, or what we're trying to point out, is maybe it's not exactly, you know, the straightforward click and then there was light. Maybe there's something else, but whatever. Also, I want to say this about Pureflex. I'm not going to completely rant, but you know how actors sometimes when they need an acting job, they'll do a Hallmark movie?
Yes.
I feel like some actors now are getting to the point where they're not getting as many roles, so they have to do their Pureflex movie to pay the bills. I know Hayden Christensen just did one about a guy in a car wreck and this church prayed for him, and he shows up and miraculously walks, and they're trying to make him look like he's 60 years old. And even Hayden Christensen at near 40, it's like, you know, maybe you could have had a bigger budget. You didn't have the budget, or you could de-age the actor or increase his age.
Did he rip his arms off the operating table and lumber forward and crush the lab equipment around him and scream no?
Oh, the trailer is absolutely hilarious about it. And you can tell Hayden Christensen is just like, I'm putting it in here.
So, although, you know, life has kind of returned to normal in one sense, though, because I'm looking at some of the recent Rotten Tomato scores, and like Father Stu got a 41 from the critics, but a 95 from the audiences. And what's the other one I was just looking at? Fantastic Beasts got a 49 from critics, but an 84 from the audiences. It's like, yeah, critics being critics and fans just enjoying it.
Well, hey,
life's kind of getting back to normal.
I will say this about Father Stu. I loved the movie. I did. I thought the performances were great. Jackie Weaver and Mel Gibson, in a lot of ways, steal that movie. But the critic side of me pointed out some obvious things. This is a story that should have been told as a series. it's hard to cram this story into 2 hours. You get glimpses of what could be a great story, and I feel like there's so much more to Stuart Long's story that you're trying to cram too much into it, and you don't, kind of like The Rise of Skywalker. You have so much story you can tell, but let's cram it in, and we'll show you this. And so, I mean, I didn't rate it. I didn't say that it was an 8 or a 9. I think I gave it a 7, but it falls along a 6 or a 7, as you could have done more with this story. Okay, if you had just done it in a limited series, and I think that would have been great. But that doesn't mean that it's not a good movie or worth watching. And generally, even kind of mediocre movies, you can still enjoy as an audience.
Sure.
So, I mean,
yeah, not everything has to be freaking Citizen Kane.
no, I mean, and let's put it into perspective. I will use my favorite Michael Bay film, The Rock. Is it really a great movie? No.
No.
Is it a fun summer action movie? Yes.
Yes. Will I absolutely? Will I watch it again and again? Yeah, I will. The same way I will watch Bad Boys. Okay, but it's not high art. It's not. There's not some social message I'm supposed to get out of it. Okay?
Is it bad that I'd rather watch a movie about two guys watching Bad Boys than Bad Boys, and that's Hot Fuzz?
And I agree. I think Hot Fuzz is a better movie than Bad Boys.
If nothing else, Bad Boys taught me that a Porsche is nothing more than a shiny dick with 2 chairs in it. So that was a valuable lesson.
Right. Well, anyway.
And you can't get a French fry out from underneath the chair.
Anyway, Father Stews, it's definitely worth checking out. There's fantastic beasts. Also, quick announcement. If you still haven't seen the Batman movie because you didn't want to sit in the theater for 3 hours, it will be on HBO Max on Monday. So there you go.
Which brings us back to something we said our last show. Movie theaters, please give us a 15-minute intermission for 3-hour movies. Thank you.
Yeah. We're okay with you doing a 3-hour epic movie, but intermission at the bar. Hey, you know what has that concept, and it's kept it going? Opera musicals.
Yes.
Yeah. They still do.
Yeah.
Want to hear a Grand Moff Tarkin dad joke?
Let's hear it.
I had a joke about Alderaan, but I blew it.
Oh. Proud of that one.
Oh, wow.
I'm just scrolling through Twitter looking for anything interesting, and that just popped up.
That's just trolling.
All right. Okay, so a couple of things if you're looking for your next great show to start streaming. While we have been able to catch up on a lot of things early with Amazon, we can't necessarily talk about it because, well, that silly embargo. We can't give you spoilers or anything. But
Silly.
I can say at least the first 2 episodes started this week. There's a new show with Josh Brolin called Outer Range. And it's a mixture of the Twilight Zone and the X-Files and Yellowstone.
I was going to say this. To me, it looked like, I saw the trailer and it looked like it was, what if it answers the question, what if Yellowstone was directed by David Lynch?
That's I've seen the first season. Well, I got through our screeners and I did enjoy it, but that's very accurate.
Would it be Twin Peaks 1883?
Yeah, basically.
We'll have a full review this week coming up in our next magazine issue. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not good. I've definitely seen better shows. It's not Reacher, where I feel like you're going to watch it more than once, or Bosch. And by the way, speaking of Amazon, in case you did not know, yes, Bosch Legacy will be coming out here in about
a little under a month.
Yeah. And
by the way, yeah. So May 4th, the final episode of Moon Knight. May 5th, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. May 6th, Bosch Legacy.
yes.
May's going to be a really busy month.
Right. And I'm going to tell you this, again, we can't spoil anything or whatever, but if you are a Bosch fan, you're going to be very excited about this. So definitely mark your calendars because it was great. So, and that's the problem with watching stuff early, Brendan. I'm like, God damn it, how long do I have to wait till season 2 of Bosch Legacy or Reacher? Anyway, but yeah, go ahead and check out Outer Range. It's a weirdly strange sci-fi, but the cast is good, and while it takes a little time kind of getting there, by the time you kind of get to the end and how it comes full circle, they definitely set it up for a really good season 2. But anyway, all right, moving right along. Video games stuff that's going on. I find it kind of interesting that there's not really that many major releases here in the spring. I mean, we had Horizon, The Elder Ring, and then MLB The Show, and that's really about it.
No, you're missing a big one.
What am I missing?
That ties in perfectly with the theme of this episode.
Skywalker Saga.
Yes, sir.
Lego Star Wars.
Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker,
which has been
Saga.
getting and I really wish I was into the Lego games more because it's been getting phenomenal critical and fan reception. Like everybody loves this game.
It's across the board. Like people are been blown away, and it's already caused a collector's conundrum because apparently, I don't know if it was the GameStop pre-order deluxe edition bonus or I can't remember what the retailer was. They had a Lego minifig of Luke drinking blue milk, and he's got a blue milk mustache. And that minifig is already starting to go on eBay for upwards of $200. Just the minifig.
Really?
Just the minifig, not the game with the minifig. Just the minifig itself. It's going skyrocketing in value on the aftermarket.
And my apologies. Yes, I forgot that I forgot the Lego game came out this past week. I honestly, I thought it was going to drop on Game Pass like day one. I guess I was wrong, but
yeah, it's not. That's not a day one game.
No. Well, anyway, I guess if you're a Star Wars fan, you like the Lego movies, it's worth checking out. We'll probably eventually get around to it, but anyway.
Are you in mourning right now, Marcus?
For what?
The fact that Game Pass dropped MLB 21, the show, to make room for MLB 22, the show?
No.
Okay.
Because I finished.
I was looking for the black armband. I didn't see anything. So.
No, because I finished my season last year, like I always do in MLB The Show. And 21. I mean, the one thing that I'm disappointed about with with 22 is you used to be able to start a season and have your roster in the cloud with PlayStation, and you can easily bring it up in the new version and continue. So if you wanted to start your season early before the new game come out, it recognized all that. Not so much on Xbox, or I don't think it has anything to do with Xbox. I think Sony just stopped doing it because I kind of started the 22 season over a little bit, or I started it and it was about 10 games in, and then I had to completely start over when 22 dropped. But no, I'm continuing with my ragtag team of Cubs, and of course my created player, me, as the star center fielder of the Cubs. So, and it's, if you're an MLB fan, I mean, it's a glorious game. They didn't really make any changes from last year's version, but the fact that it's day one on Game Pass again is incredible. But it still feels very weird to have the PlayStation logo come up, as the game is loading. So,
You're looking at your controller. You're looking at the screen. You're looking at the controller. You're looking at the screen.
Where's the triangle?
Did I screw up? Did I pick up the wrong controller?
So I'm looking at the game releases for the year, and honestly, the only thing between now and November when Starfield comes out that I want to actually play comes out next month. That's Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song.
Yeah, I knew that one was kind of coming out, and we'll get into that. I haven't really talked about Elden Ring. Excuse me. I started it, and like typical fashion, I was hoping that the mechanics would be a little bit better, compared to these games. And no, I got a little bit ways into it, but I couldn't forge new arrows. I couldn't do any strategy, couldn't roll underneath the big monsters. And I keep getting told by people who are playing these games, no, you gotta learn the timing. And I'm like, I am learning the timing. Okay. But apparently you have to be a savant to play these type of games, and Elden Ring is
well. So I didn't buy it for the simple reason that I know what From Software games are. From Software games are really well done games that are extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And I love gaming, but I'll be the first one to tell you I suck at it. And so I'm not going to buy a game where I'm going to lose to the same bad guy 100 times in a row, because I guarantee you I'm not going to get to 100 times. Yeah. I'm going to be like, okay, I might get to 30 and be like, yeah, all right, I'm done with this game, because I just don't have the patience for it. And that's not to say it's a bad game. It's just not a game for me. Okay. So
it's just sadism to me.
Yeah. It's just like, I was just reading this one story about a guy who like lost to the hardest character in the game like 200 times in a row. And now he's beaten that character 400 times so that he can show other people. And I'm like, dude, you fought the same bad guy 600 times. Yeah. I've been playing Mortal Kombat since the 90s. I don't think I fought Sub-Zero versus Scorpion 600 times.
That's 30 years.
Dude, so I don't have that kind of time. So
I want that level of commitment.
Yeah.
Or patience. Even if I had the time, I don't have the patience. Right. I looked up patience in the Irish dictionary once and said, "See, pissed off."
I mean, you and I got wives. We've got careers and shit. This. If somebody were paying me to do that, okay. If somebody would have paid me to play the same boss 600 times, I'd happily do it, but no one would.
It's a beautiful game, and we always talk about games that have a lot of great replay value. I feel like if I completed one of those campaigns, and actually got all the way through, that's it. There'd be no reason for me to go back and play that game. Like, I've accomplished that task. Whereas I can go back and play The Witcher 3 over and over. That's got a lot of replay value. I can go back and do an Elder Scrolls game. So I tried it only because they said it was a little bit different and it was easier than Dark Souls. And I'm like, no, it's really not. And to some of the other gamers, no, you just gotta bear with it and just keep on with it. I'm like, first of all, I'm putting a magazine together. I don't have that kind of time. My gaming hours and what I want to do, I need to be able to get through the game. So that's why
I don't want to be told get better at it. Go fuck yourself. I'm sorry.
Here's my thought about this game. I think Miyazaki-san owes all of the Game of Thrones fans an apology for keeping George R.R. Martin away from freaking finishing those books.
Very true. Very true. So, but when it comes to like RPG games that you want to go back and play, like I'm very much looking forward to the next God of War game. That looks fantastic, and I can't wait to play that on the PlayStation 5. But most of the games that we're going to end up, getting into and stuff, they're not coming out till this fall. And we talked about it in the last podcast, the Hogwarts Legacy game. That does look amazing, and I can't wait for that one as well. So I will, in between now that I'm, kind of done with Horizon Forbidden West. In the meantime, I'm going to go back and start replaying games that I feel like have a lot of replay value that, I can get done in 20 to 30 hours without having to die over and over and over. And stuff that are just fun to go back and play. And for you gamers out there, so I wanted to kind of lead into Star Wars with this. I wonder how many gamers are going back between now and May 25th and playing like Jedi Fallen Order again. Because I kind of started the campaign over and have better the second time around. Or how many of you gone back and played the campaign in Star Wars Battlefront and realized that that's a better movie than what the Disney sequel?
Shit.
We were talking about with Dumbledore, the not exactly a high bar. That one you could pretty much trip over.
I look at that story as I've gone back, and I think this is my third time through it. And I'm like, I really do want to see that as a movie. All the characters are great. You get to do stuff with all the legacy characters. The expanded content that leads into the sequel trilogy, again, fantastic. And Jedi Fallen Order. I want to know more.
Dude, I want to see the game behind you that's playing behind you as a movie. I've been wanting to see that as a freaking fully fleshed out story cinematically. The Force Unleashed, yeah. I'd love to.
No, you can't. You can never do the Force Unleashed as a movie, and I will tell you why. Because you will have to nerf Star Killer so much that fans of the games will be pissed. Yeah. That is a movie for no one, because Star Wars fans, like movie fans, aren't going to care, and video game fans are going to be pissed that you've nerfed Galen Merrick. You've nerfed Star Killer. And don't get me wrong, I love Sam Witwer. I want Sam Witwer more in Star Wars, but and I'm really hoping that the rumored Darth Maul cartoon gets announced at Celebration next month, because they've always said that the Clone Wars would have 2 spinoffs, and we know the first one obviously is the Bad Batch. The rumors, the second one is going to be Maul Crimson Dawn. Cool. And so I'm really hoping we get that, because then we'll get Sam Witwer back as Maul. I just don't see the Force Unleashed working as a live action property.
No, I mean, it's a great story, and I like the game. But it is one of those I think should remain a game. And I'm not saying that Disney should make the Jedi Fallen Order movie or whatever. I mean, you have a really great movie with just all the cutscenes.
I would like to see Cal Kestis come into live action, though. I think that's something you could easily do. Either, who knows, maybe he has a cameo in Obi-Wan that they're keeping quiet, or even in Andor, if he survives to Andor.
Well, I'll borrow what my nephew Asher said. I gave him the game during the holidays last year, and I mean, he, like a typical gamer, he zipped through it in a week. And my cousin was like, "Oh, thank you for giving him a game." I'm like, "Yeah, but I bet he was quiet, not bothering you." Okay, well, that's true. Yeah, see,
yeah.
But he was telling me when he got to the end of that game, and you're not going to defeat Vader. You have to escape. That's the point. And he was just like eyes wide open, enthralled, and he was like, why don't they make this a movie? This would be awesome. Like, I know exactly. It seemed this is why we talk about video games as the best stories are the ones you play. There's so much more that you get to put into it, and you get to be a part of that story. And the same with the Battlefront campaign. It's just, I don't know. It probably wouldn't work as well as a movie, no matter how much I want it, versus the experience of playing it. You know, like the Uncharted games, but at the same time, it's amazing storytelling, and it has a lot of great replay value. That's my point. So, and I'm looking forward to Jedi Fallen Order 2. Speaking of which, I did not know this. So this is a shout out to our friend Bobby Blakely, who Hollywood Matrimony, their podcast with him and his wife. He collects lightsabers, and not the master replicas, but like the hilts and stuff. I didn't know they made one for Jedi Fallen Order, and I thought that was awesome.
Actually just came out. Was it Colin Monahan? Is that the name of the actor? He was actually at Disney World a couple of weeks ago for the reveal of the saber, and there's pictures of him on the internet holding it and whatnot.
Okay, I didn't see those. Well, there's like two different versions. There's the one you start out with that's kind of broken at the bottom, and then like the two put together for the light. I'm like, that's
pretty sick. Yeah.
So I was kind of jealous of Bobby. I'm like, you're getting all of them, and they're like in your office. I'm like.
So what really pisses me off is Disney actually premiered a functioning saber that actually extends and retracts from the hilt. And they were like, oh, yeah, we're not selling this. This was just a prop design thing. And we're like, well, why did you announce it? You cruel bastards. Like,
that's just
you know how many people would buy that, you idiots? Yet instead you come out with the Galactic Star Cruiser, which sucks balls. Anyway.
That's where it's used. That's exactly where it's used.
Oh my God. The Galactic Star Cruiser, the first thing you do when you get onto the Star Cruiser is play Space Bingo.
Yeah, I read your post.
If I spend $5,000 for 2 nights and you have me saying playing Space Bingo, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, just let me off the ride.
Yeah, I don't care if we are in space. I'll just die here.
Yeah, the vacuum of space is more appealing than playing Space Bingo.
Yes.
I feel like at this point it's like the casino. Should I just give you my money and walk away because
yeah, right. Direct me to the all-you-can-eat buffet and take my money, okay?
Right.
Then I go put on my concrete shoes and throw me
like
in.
I'm gonna make my money back at the buffet. I want to be like John Panette at the prime rib counter. Hit me again.
All right. As we get to the main topic of today's show, we also still have to do this week's Side of the Apocalypse. And I thought this was hilarious and appropriate. We were talking about it before the show. The new CEO of Warner Media and head of the DC properties has announced that they're doing yet another reboot to fix everything.
Okay.
And my question is, I feel like you are in a constant reboot of your properties, still trying to keep up with Marvel. So, for those,
the best was that they said we want a Kevin Feige like character. Well, you had that. You had a Kevin Feige like guy. You had Zack Snyder, and you shat on him because he wanted to take care of his daughter.
Yeah. And then he showed you what he was going to do with his cut, which turned out to be better than the shit you released in the theater. It's like,
yeah. Put it this way: what you released in the theater, I think I gave a 5. What he did, I gave a 9. And the only reason it wasn't a 10 is because somebody needed to sit there and be like, dude, you need about 30 minutes less of slow-mo, okay?
And that's very true. But for those of us that live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we're constantly dealing with construction. Your reboot of the DC properties is like construction in Dallas. It's just always going to be there. It's a perpetual state. And at this point, I'm like,
the DC universe is I-35.
It pretty much is. It's like, I don't care. Is much as I ragged on a 3-hour Batman movie with Rob, the one that just came out, I'm also more interested to see what they kind of do with that universe, especially if they do it on HBO Max. So
well, yeah, and then that show's already they've already changed what that show is going to be before they even started filming it. Because first it was going to be a Gotham PD show, which pretty sure we already had that.
Yeah, we already did that.
And so they would be rebooting that. So that's fits with our rebooting theme here. But then they're like, oh wait, well it's really going to focus more on Arkham Asylum and it's going to be more of a horror show. And I'm like, okay, so you've already rebooted the show before you even.
My head hurts. My head hurts. My head hurts.
Can you guys just not announce anything until it's filming?
No. You can announce it, but you also have to tell us what Earth we're on for this particular property. Earth 69. It's the Arkham Horror Gotham show.
Yeah.
It's like I can't even keep up. And that's the only way for me to find logic in what you're doing is like, well, this is just another Earth. And I guess they'll make a Flash movie where he bounces around to all of them, and that's how they're going to connect to one another. Which one do you like? I remember, again, another conversation with my nephew. We were talking about the Christopher Reeve movies. And it's like, well, how can he still be your favorite when they've made? Because this is DC. There's many universes. And I like that Superman better in that universe. Okay.
It's ridiculous. Like even in the comics, they're doing this too, because first of all, they're constantly rebooting the comics. And I went to the comic shop the other day here in McKinney. I went to Carpe Diem Comics right on the square, beautiful place. And they had like War for Earth 3. And then there was like all these other ones. I'm like, I can't keep up with all this shit.
You know what? I have the perfect suggestion. Let's not do any more reboots. Let's do regeneration. Let's have it be like the Doctor. Every time you want to do something, you just regenerate the characters. And you literally have the regeneration. Like Ben Affleck or Christian Bale can go into Ben Affleck and vice versa. And I feel like at this point, for nerds, it'll just make much more sense. We're regenerating the characters. It's not a reboot. Well, it is, but we appreciate it.
Then you run the risk of that Tom Holland moment of, I don't want to go, I don't want to go, I don't want to go.
Well, they've already had that moment with David Tennant.
David Tennant, yeah, we kind of did, yeah, didn't we?
Yeah.
Like, Tom Holland kind of stole it from David Tennant.
Yeah,
now that we think about it.
Well, I mean, David Tennant did precede that.
But if you're going to steal it, I mean,
Yeah.
I agree with that. So
I mean, fair, yes. Steal from the David Tennant. Who,
right.
Yes.
All right. Our main topic of the show. How do you properly watch Star Wars? As you begin your binge watch of the movies, shows, and all that leading up to the anniversary, and we know that most Star Wars fans are. I admit that I started episode 1 yesterday. I think we've talked about it before, but I think it's time that we define the proper way of doing things in the Star Wars universe by That Nerd Show. So I'm going to start it off with this question. I think there should be 2 categories. One, if you've already seen all the movies and you grew up with it, versus newcomers who don't know anything about Star Wars. Maybe there's 2 different formats. So Brendan, I'm going to start with you. If you're watching this, so here's a 2-part question. If you're watching it as someone who has already seen everything, where do you start? And then where should people start if they've never seen it?
Well, so the way I kind of broke it down, because I did 2 different categories too, is if you're just introducing the new people to Star Wars, or if you're a completionist and you want to watch everything.
That's a good term.
Okay, so if you're a person who has never watched Star Wars, I always default to the Machete order, because episode 1 really isn't necessary.
Right.
It just and we rag on it for Jar Jar, but beyond Jar Jar, anything that is really germane to the overall Skywalker saga from episode 1 is actually covered in flashback by episode 2 or through conversation. And so unless you just want to watch the Duel of the Fates, which by all means, there's really no reason storytelling wise, narrative wise, to watch episode 1. So start with episode 2, go to or I should say, if Machete Order started with 4, right? Yeah, we go to 4. So we go to so in this case, this would be a revised Machete Order because now we have Rogue One. So I would say start with Rogue One, then watch episode 4, then watch Empire Strikes Back. We learn that gives us the surprise that Vader is Luke's father. Then we go back and watch episode 2 and episode 3, and now you have Luke's storyline, Vader's storyline, and then we wrap it all up in a nice bow with episode 6. And if you must, go watch 7, 8, and
9. Okay.
Like, I'm not going to tell you not to do it. I watched them each once. Never got around to doing it twice, but hey.
Sure.
Now, if you're a completionist, you've already seen the main saga, and you just want to watch everything, I would just do it in chronological order. So I would start with 1, 2, then the Clone Wars, the entire Clone Wars cartoon, then episode 3, then Solo, a Star Wars story, then Obi-Wan when it comes out here next month, then concurrently, you could pick either one because they're going to come out at about the same time. But Star Wars Rebels, and when it comes out, Andor, because they'll be running at the same time frame. Then Rogue One, then A New Hope, Empire, Jedi, and then you get into your Mando seasons 1 and 2 and Boba Fett, and then Ahsoka when it comes out and whatnot. And then again, if you must, 7, 8, and 9. Oh, I forgot Resistance in there. If you really want to do everything, then Resistance would also be in the. I think it's between 7 and 8 is when that one happens. So there you go. So revised Machete Order for somebody who's never seen it, and then the completionist.
Right. All right, Chad, I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to circle back around to this. If you're a newcomer, how would you do it?
I would, if for no other reason, just to know what our experience was growing up with it, I would introduce a newcomer to it the way we were introduced to it.
Right.
It just seems like the natural order of things. I definitely agree with Brendan that there is so very precious little of episode 1 that happened of consequence that it's really all that necessary. I've seen several fan edits that I might expose them to. Like there's I want to say there's an edit called The Turn to the Dark Side or something that's like episodes 1 through 3 that's mashed up into one cohesive story that's just under 3 hours long. It's kind of like watching the like the super cut they did of The Hobbit, where they edited all 3 of those together and they just cut out all the extraneous parts, which, let's face it, is mostly Jar Jar, and all of Anakin going yippee and getting on my fucking nerves. But as long as you can start with, as I want to say, the Phantom edit and the Turn to the Dark Side, it literally starts with the battle at Naboo with Maul and Kenobi and Qui-Gon. We jumped right to the battle at the beginning of episode 2.
Speaking of which, I wonder if it's actually still on YouTube. There was a really great edit where you mashed the 3 movies together. I think it was called Revenge of the Jedi or
I've got 2 or 3 of them, and I'm sure that's one of them is probably the one you're referring to. I'm trying to look the name of it up, but
yeah,
Yeah, if I really wanted to do them a solid, I would kind of give them the primer view of the prequel trilogy that way. Just try to shove it down their throat as quickly and as cleanly as possible. Then move on to the films that followed it, not chronologically, but theatrically released order. And then, like Brendan said, go back and just do it, in a chronological way. The only problem that you would run into, though, Brendan, whenever you got to the Clone Wars, is how it ends. Because I mean, you'd have to show them that final episode of the final season of the Clone Wars at the same time they're watching episode 3. It basically runs parallel with it.
Yeah, it does to an extent. I would probably show them the Clone Wars final episode first.
Before episode 3?
3, yeah. Because
that's a tough call for me. I don't know how I would do it, because it almost seems like, and I don't know how, like I said it in a podcast that my team and I did when we were wrapping up Boba Fett, that the final episode of the final season of the Clone Wars is, in my very humble opinion, some of the best Star Wars I've ever seen.
Well, that whole 4-episode arc, if you just cut that into one, hour and 20-minute movie.
Somebody did. I think somebody did.
Well, actually, I think they did they did it and released it as a DVD. But
red instead of blue.
Yeah, instead of the yellow.
But yellow, that's right.
Yeah. So but no, it's probably the best Star Wars on screen since Empire.
Yes.
It's really phenomenal. I've now, I just joked about how I've only watched the sequels once. I've probably gone back and watched that 4-episode arc 10 times since it came out.
Right there with you. It's
so
I've never been every time.
And that was, and by the way, that fight between Ahsoka and Maul, that was all motion capture. So that was probably the best animated lightsaber duel ever. And I'll put that in top 5 of all lightsaber duels in Star Wars.
It had so much weight to it, physically, emotionally. I mean,
yeah.
Oh, God almighty. It just, I was in awe watching that 4-episode arc. I'm like, man, it don't get better than this on an animation.
No, it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it.
That was Filoni in full stride.
Yeah.
No, don't disagree on that. It's funny. I still love Machete Order to the point of, I think if you introduce a newcomer, you have to introduce them to episode 4. Okay.
Yeah.
And 5. You can't take away the surprise of Vader revealing that he's Luke's father. I mean, I love the videos of parents, filming their kids as they're watching the movie, and they're like,
on the shock. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, no, that can't be true. I mean, the one.
Yeah, they're having the same reaction as Luke. It's great.
Right. Now, if you really wanted to do it, I do have this theory that Rogue One and A New Hope are just the perfect double feature. I mean, as a Star Wars fan, if you watch Rogue One in an afternoon, how do you not put A New Hope on and go, because it literally leads right into it.
Yeah, I actually would like somebody to do a double cut of it to where, and they have, but only like a 20-minute version. But I would actually like to see the two movies just mashed.
Right.
I would sit for that, 4 hours or whatever it is.
Absolutely. And because that's the most brilliant thing of storytelling that Disney has done with all the movies they've made, is to show, leading up to this, to introduce new heroic characters who they know they're going to die. It's a suicide mission. It's the Alamo. They don't cram in some ridiculous love scene that is unnecessary. You have all the footage of, the pilots that come and rescue, and Vader being Vader. Okay. I mean, I could honestly see starting off and doing that double feature as these are your movies, to the point of, oh my God, you kind of get a little bit about what's going on, the Death Star, blah, blah, blah. But then again, there's a reason that episode 4 is the beginning, because it introduces you to all the characters and the proper way of the hero's journey, the older mentor and his connection and the plucky pirate. And then, I think you also take away the awe of when they first see the Death Star, that's no moon, it's a space station.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is the perfect way to introduce to this world, even though it's kind of a small story, but all of its connections to a larger world. After episode 5, I've always said you have to treat the prequels as like a flashback and everything that leads up to it, because you've introduced all of these characters. You want to know more about them. So you want to see what happens to Vader, and especially when Luke, reconciles the truth and he sees it through the Force. And I also think it makes much more sense when he finally realizes the truth and kind of knows the story. That scene that he has with Obi-Wan in Return of the Jedi, when he's like, "You told me Vader killed." To me, I look at that scene in a new way as, oh, you actually know the full truth now. And now you're more mad at Obi-Wan for you feel like he's lying to you, but you don't understand that Obi-Wan's telling the story from his point of view and how he sees Vader now. Okay. So there's a lot more weight to it. And I think that's Luke seeing what transpired. I agree. Episode 1's kind of unnecessary. It's fun. It's cool for kids, but really the best part is just the last battle, when all that's going on, and that's all you really need. And then episode 2 and 3, but Brendan's right. If you are a completionist, how do you jump from episode 1 to episode 3 without watching all of the Clone Wars? Because that makes episode 3 such a better movie, having seen the story transpire over a few years and Anakin really becoming the hero that he becomes, the legend, everything else. And I agree with you about the last 4 episodes of the last season of the Clone Wars. And if you really watch it, what's going on, it'll lead you right into I don't know. I see. Okay, I take that back. I don't know if the last season of the Clone Wars, or maybe that four episode arc, maybe you take a break in the middle of episode 3 and then you watch that, so you kind of have these two stories going on side by side. I've never watched it that way, but now I'm curious of how you would do that.
I think the point where you would do that would probably be after Dooku is killed, and right after they land the Separatist ship on Coruscant, and they've returned and then Obi-Wan and Anakin go off again. That would probably be the point to watch that 4 episode arc.
Yeah. Which,
if you were gonna pause it in the middle of episode 3,
that's a good place. Because it's a movie unto itself. Anyway. Yeah. But I think you have to do all of this before you even get to Return of the Jedi, because Return of the Jedi really, if you look at it as a whole, it's just one big climax. That's all it is. You know the character.
Hey.
Davis.
Anyway.
Stay on target. Stay on target.
It came from behind. So hold on. So there was this game on Facebook one time, and they were like, okay, say a line from Star Wars, but in a sexual content. And of course, all of these came up, right? And I broke everybody when I said, myself, the boy, 2 droids, and no questions asked.
Oh, and please tell me you did that voice in the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You came in that thing. You're braver than I thought.
Oh my God.
Excuse me.
Pretty much, which, by the way, probably is a very good description of Harrison Ford in the 70s.
Hey.
You know what? Coming out about him, and I think Carrie Fisher started that with the book that she came out with before she died. About, look, of course we hooked up on the set.
Well, there was that, and then who was it? The lead singer of the Mamas and the Papas. The first time she went to see Star Wars, she goes, "Holy shit, that's my pot dealer."
I know. Harrison Ford in the 70s. I feel like there's a lot more stories that we haven't heard from the set.
Oh God.
Graffiti.
Yeah. It would surprise me if Mark Hamill has an entire just like the dirty Star Wars stories just written and put aside to be published after he dies.
Right. So, but anyway, getting back to my point about Return of the Jedi, it's just having all of that backstory, I think, adds more weight to that movie, and Luke's journey into itself. But you definitely have to. I do think you should include the Han Solo story before you get to Return of the Jedi, just so because I think that's also kind of perfect. Because since that movie starts off with them rescuing him from Jabba the Hutt anyway, and of course, Rogue One just being such a brilliant movie that leads you right into Episode 1. Hell, I would say this: you could watch all that and then watch Rogue One and then Episode 1 again, and go just as a refresher, and then you get to the sequel trilogy if you want to. But as a completionist, I want to watch everything in order now, as the proper timeline. But I feel like if you do that, the sequel trilogy will be so underwhelming. Basically, it'll be the last season of Game of Thrones. Like, you've had all this great storytelling building up to this point, and you're like, all right, let's get through it, just to get through it. So
yeah, I've tried to watch the sequel trilogy again. I just can't bring myself to click play on Disney Plus.
No, I've watched it a couple of times, and I'm going to go ahead and do it again. But we all know that it's not as good. And the two best movies that Disney made were the Han Solo story and Rogue One. Rogue One is by far the best they did. Obviously, because it's the less interference by Kathleen Kennedy, and Darth Vader is just a fucking badass. So, but
go Jason Voorhees in that corridor just charges me up every time.
The other thing too is watching Rebels literally right before Rogue One, I think adds a lot more weight to how great Rogue One is as a series.
Yeah.
Rebels.
Yeah, I love Rebels, and look, I understand it starts slow. The first 7 episodes really start slow because it's just about getting them together, building the world, building up this idea of Lothal as a planet that nobody's heard of before. So getting the team together, I get it starts slow, but then around episode 8, Moff Tarkin comes into the show, and then Vader at the very end of season 1, and then from season 2 on, it just goes nuts because you've got Vader in there, and they use him just enough, and then of course they bring in Thrawn, and everybody went nuts when they brought in Thrawn. So, and of course now we're gonna get Thrawn in live action, which is fantastic.
I haven't watched Rebels in a while, but it is the end of season 1 when you realize, or when Ahsoka comes on and you realize that she's
Fulcrum,
yeah.
Right. But it's also that very.
Uh-oh, did we lose Marcus? Marcus is frozen.
Either that or he's in very deep thought.
Mm-hmm.
There
he goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were afraid that Baby Yoda put you in forced stasis there for a minute.
No, the webcam is acting up a little bit. I think it's this older phone that I'm using. but it is that last episode too that Ahsoka finally feels it through the Force, so that it's Anakin is Darth Vader, right?
Oh no, that's season 2.
That's
because because it's that's like towards the end of season 2. It's because the end of season 1, season 1 ends with Vader coming off the ramp of the Lando shuttle, and you just hear his breathing.
Yeah.
And that's how they end season 1, and that's the hook to get you back from season 2. In the beginning of season 2, they drop, like, Sabine blows up an ATST and it falls on them, and they're like, okay, we'll get away. And the fire and the smoke settles, and Vader's just sitting there holding the ATST up with the Force, and he gently places it down behind him and reignites his saber. And Ezra asks Kanan, well, if that didn't kill him, what will? And Kanan has the most appropriate response in the history of, like, this is what should happen in every horror movie, but never does. And he goes, not us, run. It's like, that's
so well put together.
Yeah, it's like, that is a very appropriate response to Vader.
Oh, the line just leading into his introduction in that series, where what was the double agent's name? Karras or something like that?
Yeah, Agent Karras. Callus.
Where he's talking to Tarkin, and he's like, there are a lot of people that perceive the Empire as weak, and then that's when you hear the clunk, 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 and then you hear the breath, and you're like, oh shit, they're not about to.
What's funny too is I'm waiting for that character, like, to be changed to a black guy in live action, and people are going to be pissed until they realize that the guy who voiced him was actually black.
Was David Oyelowo?
Who's a British actor who was on MI5, and I think he's doing something rather big, like, coming up soon. I'm bringing up his IMDb right now.
Well, he's not exactly.
He's going to be in the Rocketeers. He's going to be the Rocketeer in the Rocketeers.
Yeah.
And there was something else that had just come out recently, and I can't remember what it was. But I guess I'm wrong because I'm not seeing it here. Maybe it was just the Rocketeers that I heard about. But yeah, he's an awesome actor, and I would actually love for them. I'd rather, instead of it being a blonde white guy with somebody else's voice, I'd much rather them change the character in this case to a black man, just so I could hear his voice. Because his, very much like Kevin Conroy is the voice of Batman, this dude is Callus.
I'm kind of surprised that the woke culture hasn't, or they haven't canceled Star Wars Rebels yet, because the animated version is some blonde, blue-eyed Nazi. That's because it's 10 years old at this point. Wait, when did Rebels come out? 2014. It's 8 years old at this point. So, I mean, it's beyond the consciousness of the 5 minutes short attention span theater, world we live in. Very true. Once we get done with all of these series, though, I am very interested to go back and watch everything, because by the time we get to the 50th anniversary of Star Wars, you were going to have all of this content, but to literally watch the story in order. And I think that'll be the great task in about 5 years, is every series, make it linear. And then again, you get to the sequel trilogy and like, do we really need to at this point?
And there's so many, hopefully we get some answers next month at Celebration, because there's so much unknown about what's coming out. Okay, because we know we're getting Andor, we know we're getting Ahsoka. We don't know how long Mandalorian's going to go, but I think it's only going to be 4 seasons.
Right.
Because I heard a rumor where after season 4, like, all the characters are going to stay going forward in new shows, but they're going to end the Mandalorian show because his individual story will be over.
Right.
But Din Djarin will still be active in the shows. It's just the new shows will reflect the wider scope of the story, and that makes a lot of sense, because I've also heard rumors that they're going to adapt the Heir to the Empire trilogy, and it's not going to be exactly what we got in books, because I don't know how you would even do Jorah Sabaoth. I just don't think his character translates well to the movies, but or to television, but we'll see how that turns out. But so we've got all this that we don't know about the Mandoverse, and then we don't even know when Patty Jenkins's Rogue Squadron is going to take place. We only know that it's going to occur during an unexplored point of Star Wars. Well, there's lots of unexplored points of Star Wars. There's the 9 years between, or the 10 years between Episode 3 and Obi-Wan. There's the 5 years between, or Obi-Wan and when the rebellion starts. There's the 20 years between the Mandoverse and the Mandoverse and the sequel trilogy. There's the 3 years between Jedi and the Mandoverse, and then there's after the sequel trilogy. Yeah. So, and of course, there's all the time before the prequels, but I didn't mention that because Rogue Squadron came out of Luke and all that, so it's not going to apply. So, when is this going to happen? And then we've got the Taika Waititi movie we know nothing about. We've got the Kevin Feige movie we know nothing about. So
all I'm saying is, by the time, in about 5 years, when we're celebrating the 50th anniversary, which I feel like May will just be a grand celebration of everything.
It's gonna be interesting. I really hope they re-release for the 50th. I really hope they re-release the original trilogy in theaters, because I still have not seen A New Hope and Empire in theaters, because when they were re-released in 1997, I was in boot camp.
Yeah.
And that sucked.
Yeah. So I agree. And I think at that point, you need to have the original theatrical releases, and there needs to be a whole thing. Look, it's great to celebrate 45 years. And, we'll have our May issue is going to be dedicated to Star Wars. But especially with the documentary that I wanted to do about the sequel trilogy, and the reason that it hasn't happened is it's the conversation we wanted to have is so much more than just The Force Awakens. There's so much that has come out that I feel like it should be a series as a documentary series more than anything. And with all the content that we're going to get, you cannot tell this kind of great story of everything for our generation. All we got the original trilogy, and then we got the prequels. And the prequels, it was exciting for them to do new movies, even if they weren't great. I will never take away from lining up and being a part of that experience, that kind of thing. But what Disney Plus has done, Favreau and Filoni, to giving us great content and the stuff that we get to look forward to, hell yeah. It's great to be a nerd and a Star Wars fan. And we're finally getting everything that we wish that we would have gotten in the late 80s and the 90s and stuff. So anyway, but we'll see and stuff. Now, before we close this out, I want to get to talking about the Obi-Wan series, who's, as Brendan said, yes, they moved it to May 27th. And Brendan, what was the main reason for that?
Well, there's two reasons that I can think of offhand. The first being that May 27th, or so, it was originally supposed to come out May 25th. They moved it to 27th. The first reason is Star Wars Celebration, which hasn't been held in 3 years, is starting on May 26th. So my initial thought was, okay, they decided they wanted to do a red carpet premiere at Celebrations for the fans, the media, and the Star Wars actors in attendance. Right. Fine, no problem. The other reason is, what else drops on May 27th? Does anybody know offhand? Stranger Things season 4.
Oh,
yeah.
So they're trying to take a shot at and go head to head against Netflix. That's exactly what they're doing, and see who gets better streaming numbers.
Well, that won't really count us. We'll probably end up getting it early.
And as for why it's not on May the 4th, for all the people who instantly go, oh, why not May the 4th? Because May the 4th be with you. Okay, well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, Moon Knight is finishing on May the 4th. That's having its finale. The next day is Doctor Strange 2. Okay. And May the 4th has nothing to do with Star Wars. The first usage of May the 4th that can be tracked to anywhere was May 4th, 1979, and it was the British Conservative Party in a newspaper congratulating Margaret Thatcher on being elected to the office of Prime Minister. It was May the 4th be with you, Maggie. It wasn't used again until 15 years later, again in British politics, and it was this time a Labour Party guy talking about discussing their defense budget on May the 4th, and it was appropriate that they were, had their own Star Wars. It wasn't used by Star Wars fans until after the prequels came out. It wasn't until Reddit became a thing and the internet and message boards. It wasn't until the early 2000s, like 2004, 2005, mid 2000s, that May the 4th be with you became a common thing with Star Wars fans. So that's why we're not getting anything on May the 4th except maybe some announcements. But they're not even going to do a ton of announcements because I got Celebration 3 weeks later.
Well, that's fine. I've got my wedding anniversary that day because, I'm that kind of a dork.
So, and I think Marcus's camera has stalled out on him again. Baby Yoda has him in forced stasis again.
He looks puzzled and bewildered.
Either that or he's very intently listening to what I had to say.
You do hold a great conversation.
Well, I try. But I am looking forward to Celebration this year. I think we're going to get a lot of news. I think we're going to get updates. I think the biggest thing we'll get updates on is Ahsoka Andor, hopefully the Darth Maul cartoon, and maybe some news on Rogue Squadron and the other movies that I mentioned that we know nothing about.
Think maybe there's possibility we could maybe get some game related news like the
possibly. It wouldn't surprise me if they finally confirmed Jedi the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, which I don't think it's going to be called Jedi Fallen Order 2, because I kept it going. Marcus, you're good.
There you are.
So
back,
I don't think it's going to, because everybody forgets if you look at the.
I'm just going to hold this face. So
So because and there he gets stuck again. If you look at Jedi Fallen Order 2, it's Jedi Fallen Order. So I think it's really meant to be the Jedi series.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be Jedi something different in the second game. And he kind of does have that big smiley goofy face. I think when he comes back in, he's probably going to end the show on us, folks, because his camera keeps
replaced by the frown.
That's the thing. Do you ever wonder how I got these scars? Sorry, I just took a turn back to DC there, but it was worth it. But anyway, yeah. So I definitely think we can get some video game news, especially with no E3 this year.
Yeah.
And I think E3 is probably just a thing of the past at this point. Because COVID killed it, and it was kind of going away anyway. And now, like all of the big developers and publishing houses, so Xbox is going to have their big thing. Now, what will be interesting to see is Bethesda's always had their own E3. Now, are they still going to do that, or is because they're part of Xbox? Marcus just messaged that he'll be there in a minute. Are they still going to have their own showcase, or are they going to, roll it into Xboxes, or are they going to do some stuff at Xboxes and then have their own? That'll be interesting to see. So you're going to have the Xbox One, you're going to have the Nintendo One. We're going to have probably some type of Sony Play event, although they haven't announced anything because for whatever reason, Sony's completely screwing up this generation.
Yeah, they've dropped the ball.
Yeah. And then you're going to have big publishers. You're going to have EA, probably Bethesda is going to have their own. I would imagine Ubisoft will have their own. Activision. Well, that's another one. Activision Blizzard. I guess they would still have their own Activision Blizzard because the merger with Xbox hasn't even gone through yet. The acquisition hasn't been approved yet. So I'm assuming Activision Blizzard will still have their own, but all those big publishing houses will all have their own, summer events. And of course, it won't be the week of E3. It'll probably be stretched out over June and July as we go into Gamescom in August. But which is one thing I would really love to go to one day is Gamescom. It's the biggest gaming convention outside the United States. And it's in Cologne, Germany, which is also home of the Kolsch style of beer. As a matter of fact, if you're drinking a Kolsch that's brewed outside of Cologne, Germany, it has to say Kolsch style ale because it's not a true Kolsch, because it's not from Cologne. Much like if you're drinking a champagne that's not from Champagne, France, it's just sparkling white wine. Right. So, yeah. So that'd be a bucket list thing for me to go to Gamescom for the convention and drink some proper Kolsch from Cologne. That'd be awesome. But yeah, so definitely some Star Wars games. And God, we need some good Star Wars games news. Like I would love to hear more about what Ubisoft is doing, because they're using the same engine, the Snowdrop engine that they do Tom Clancy's The Division. They're using to make a Star Wars game. So that'll be really interesting. I want to hear more about that. At Quantic Dream, they announced their big thing, the Star Wars Eclipse, which is going to be, they're the same guys that did Detroit Become Human. And then it came out that they're having problems hiring people because of their senior leadership. So now they're saying that game might not come out for till 2026, 2027. So who's like, why announce that? Here's another Cyberpunk 2077. It's not just a title. It's a release date.
Good Lord.
So, that when they first announced it, it was like, because that they announced Cyberpunk 2077 in 2012.
Yes.
And it didn't actually come out until 2021. And so the whole joke was Cyberpunk 2077. It's not just a title; it's a release date. And then after it launched, and it was such a shit show, the joke was 2077. It should have been the release date.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes,
we can. Yes.
Okay. Well, Skynet is definitely screwing up everything. So I think that's their way of saying that, yes, this podcast has come to an end. And we apologize if the sound's a little off towards the end. But anyway.
Yeah, I kept it going.
Yeah.
And
thank you for announcing everything that we're hoping for at Celebration this year. That'll be a great day. We'll be live streaming it on our website and getting updates for you as it happens. So anyway, with that said, we'll be back in a couple of weeks as we get close to May the 4th. And excuse me, hopefully we'll get more and more announcements about Star Wars stuff. But before we go, I'm going to ask one final question. Brendan, as we're doing the 45 days of Star Wars, what's the one thing that you have gone back, or what's the one thing you're doing to celebrate Star Wars right now?
Actually, last night I just started rewatching the Clone Wars from season 1, episode 1.
Good
also,
choice.
I've been replaying Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2.
Nice.
And I always play Star Wars The Old Republic. I still have 3 character storylines I have to finish. So I've got the Jedi Consular I'm pretty close on. I'm in chapter 3 of that one. And there's 3 chapters to the original level 50 storylines. But then I'm still on chapter 2, early in chapter 2 of both the Bounty Hunter I'm on chapter 2, and the Imperial Agent I'm still towards the end of chapter 1. So I've got a lot of work to do on those 2.
As we like to call it, first world problems here at That Nerd Show.
Only kind I have.
All right. And Chad, how about you? What are you doing to celebrate the 45 days of Star Wars?
I'm really wanting to. It's just a matter of deciding on which platform I want to do it on. But I want to pick up the Skywalker saga. like a Star Wars Skywalker saga, and dive into that, because I mean, just after reading and watching videos of multiple reviews, and the gaming press is just crazy over it. They're praising it like crazy. And you know, even casual fans are saying this is one of the most fun Lego games. They changed so much about the gameplay mechanics and stuff. And I don't know,
it's the one game that got delayed a bunch of times that actually launched in a really good place. Like they took advantage of the extra time. I was watching one video of somebody playing. It was actually another YouTuber, Star Wars Meg. And she's during her normal videos, she's very businesslike. She's very professional. And then she's just dropping F-bombs like a sailor as she's playing the scene for Yoda's escape from Kashyyyk. And she's like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And I'm sitting there dying because I'm so used to her being so buttoned up and professional. It was pretty funny, but she was having a blast. So
yeah, this looks top notch. This looks like the best Lego game that's come out in a while. With that much content, covering that much ground, yeah.
Well, then you'll definitely have to check it out for that nerd show in your podcast and let us know. It's not one
definitely.
In the time being. I did start Jedi Fallen Order over again, and I went through the campaign on Battlefront again, getting into Star Wars gaming. Now, I will say this regarding Star Wars gaming. There's definitely going to have to be some Ewok Hunt broadcasted live.
Yes.
Since we have not played that in a while. And that is still one of the best modes I ever came up with in a Star Wars game. And if you don't know what it is, it's basically a horror survival version of you're a stormtrooper trying to survive those evil Ewoks at night at Endor, on Endor. And they are little fuckers.
It's what the Friday the 13th game should have been, actually.
Pretty much.
It actually reminds me a lot of the Predator versus the Predator game that came out, where you can either be the Predator or the guys hunting the Predator.
And you don't think being an Ewok gives you much of an advantage? Oh, it does. Oh, does it?
Way, speaking of that Predator game, Predator Hunting Grounds, that's one of our favorites to play as a squad. It's fantastic. But anyway, it's always a good time to start the movies over, which I did. And like Brendan, I've been watching the Clone Wars because it's just a brilliant series. And so I feel like my challenge to all Star Wars fans, if you work remotely, work from home, have Star Wars playing in the background. Now, with that said, you are allowed to take a break on May 5th because Star Trek Strange New Worlds will be starting, and we finally get a good Captain Pike story.
Yeah, and you have to go to the theaters to go to Doctor Strange 2.
Yes, well, that's just kind of obvious that we're going to see that. I honestly kind of forgot about that movie.
May is just stupid. I mean, there's so much going on in May, from finishing out Moon Knight, Bosch, Doctor Strange 2, freaking Obi-Wan, Celebration. I mean, it's just so much going on. I know I'm forgetting like 2 other movies in that month too.
We're finally going to get to see if this Top Gun Maverick movie is real. I maintain that it isn't until I finally see it, but the trailers have sold me, and I'm like, I really do want to see the sequel to Top Gun.
I still love the trailer where they're like, here you are, Captain. And then they switch to what is just one of life's little mysteries, sir? And then they switch to the Sky Penis.
No. And I think we should get the Sky Penis version as well. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's been I can't find it anywhere on the internet anymore.
Tom Cruise and Scientology definitely scrubbed it. So
yeah, which is a shame because it was hilarious.
Oh, I know.
By the way, the commander of that squadron, of the guy who actually did the Sky Penis, it wasn't not the guy who drew the Sky Penis. That was just a lieutenant. But the commander of the squadron, his name was Commander Brendan Stickles, and his call sign is Tess Stickles. So of course somebody in his squadron drew a Sky Penis.
I kind of feel like
I will say it has not hurt the commander's career, because he is now a defense advisor in the office of the vice president.
And for those of you that thought drawing penises or Sky Penises can't get you anywhere.
Well, and to be fair, he didn't draw it. He was just the commander of the squadron that did. He actually he's also on the editorial board of the United States Naval Institute. So, dude, he's connected. Let's just say that. So, but anyway, I just thought it was hilarious that he got the call. They gave him the call sign Tess because his last name is Stickles.
Well, we'll be back in a couple of weeks as we get ready for May the 4th and as we keep plugging along in our celebration of Star Wars. It's hard to imagine it's been 45 years, but here we are, and it's great. It's a great time to be a Star Wars fan. There's a lot of great content. So, all right, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. It's time to say goodbye.
Bye, everybody.